Hey, okay. Maybe. Woo! I had it happen yesterday that my internet died. Like everything in the entire house disconnected for 2 minutes. No idea what happened there. Didn't not the same thing that happened today. My phone was still fine, but my laptop was just like, yeah, no, not doing internet right now. Now, this is just an internet issue, which again I know nothing about, so I'm going to wait for Mr. Moose to be free, and then have him figure out what's going on there with me. For me, not with me. I'm not going to contribute at all. Oh. The internet hates me, Viking. By the way, Viking, that's Mr. Moose, my husband. It's just being dumb. I don't know what's going on. I might have blocked links. Does somebody want to post a link and check? That was right about the time that the internet died, so I flipped the little switch. I don't know if it actually worked though. Okay, now it looks like everybody's just swearing. So, oops, so I accidentally missed part of the fabric here. So, oop, the very back corner of the foot there just missed a little bit. That's okay. This is a test. On the actual plushies that I make, usually what I will do is I will take all the thread out of my machine, and then I will do this first stitch, this outline, right onto the stabilizer, just punch it full of holes. And then I'll know exactly where to put the fabric down after I make those holes, just to be sure that I'm not going to run into an issue where I got right up to the edge and missed a bit there. But this is a test and it doesn't matter as much, so I will just deal with having a little hole in the back there and it will be fine. Oh, I know something I forgot to include on this paw print there. The V here in between the toes, that's going to get folded and sewn down, but not all the way. So I need to leave a little bit at the end to attach to these toes. So I think I need to end sewing right about here. But I didn't mark that, and I should have. So, oops. But I'm going to pull off my paper. There we go. I don't see a Google link. Oh, so it tricks you into thinking that you actually posted a link, but you didn't. Tricksy tricksies. Okay, so now I'm going to cut out this one. Purely because I want to get the little cuts, the darts there onto the toes. So I need to know where they go. Let's see these guys. I could have also done this in the embroidery where I just had my machine stitch out the little V shapes, but I made this quick and I didn't think of doing that until after I'd already put it onto my sewing machine there. So I will probably do that for the next version. Okay. And then if this character had toenails or like little claws, this would be exactly how I put in the claws as well. You just basically make this little cut, make a claw, stick it in there, and then sew it back together around the claw. So in this case, though, I'm just trying to make them rounded, so I'm going to just sew them together there. That lines up pretty good. There you go. And then because these are darts, I actually want to sew directly onto those lines. So I'm not going to cut them out, but what I am going to do is cut directly down the center, because then I'm going to have an easier time folding them to line up the two sides of the V. Okay. There we go. So now I've cut down the center, then I can just fold it in half right at that fold, or right at that cut there. And that's going to be the little line that I sew on to create that little, the puff rounded shape. I am also going to add approximately where I believe I should stop sewing. Right about there. And now I get to sew this all up so I can attach it to this half. Ooh, I will close Discord. Discord on my computer misbehaves on a regular basis anyways. I don't know what that is. I might just uninstall and reinstall it and see if I got something bad there. But I usually look at my phone for Discord, but I can't right now because it's currently a camera pointed at my sewing machine. If I'm all the way over here, can you guys still hear me? I'm not judo. Okay. So I am using that stabilizer bit that I cut off of the embroidery, so that when I start sewing right on the edge here, it's not going to try and suck this fabric down into the machine there. All those little holes. And I forgot my tiny scissors, because I'm going to just cut it free here. And then go on to the next toe. So there we go. Just that tiny little V right there. Just to give it a little bit of a rounded shape. This is a tiny little toe. And for this, I am using red thread, just because it is super easy to see in case I need to pull this out later on. Normally on the finished products though, I match the color of the thread to the actual fabric I'm stitching on, so that if then you pull it open at that seam, you can't see any of the stitches. And then I do need to tear these little guys off for now because they're in the way of the next shape. But that just rips off. And now I can stitch this together. And this one I'm not going to use any paper on because I'm not starting on the edge of the fabric. I'm starting at the little line I drew in the middle there. Let's see, right there. There we go. And I'll bring that back over to the table now. There we go. And it no longer even sits flat on the table because I've created that V shape there to give it some shape. Okay. I can put my pieces out of the way. There we go. And this hand, this top part, gets pinned onto the bottom part. This I'm not going to sew without pins just because it is a very complex shape and I want to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up. So I'm just going to match up all the points and dips in between the toes. And then I'll probably come back and see if anything in between actually needs to be pinned as well. The embroidery, I've got it on the top and the bottom. So this is just the lines for where the color changes are going to be. In the final finished version, these will probably just be seams where I sewed the two color fabrics together. The embroidery is just going to be the paw print there. Yep, and everything is pinned inside out because I want to sew it so that afterwards, if I sew along this line, I can flip it and those sewed bits are stuck inside there. There is one type of seam where you actually sew it the right way together, like you would sew this way first, so that the raw edges that you sew are actually open and like visible. It's called French seams, although if you are French, it's called English seams. And basically you sew it this way and then flip it again and stitch it the other way around, so that when all said and done, the seams inside look pretty and they're not going to have any like raw edges, any fuzzies or like bits of thread falling off the edges inside. It's most often used on fancy clothing and pillowcases. Fancy clothing and pillowcases. I am also attempting to line up the lines on the front and back where they should be. If this is again my final version, I would actually sew this line to the other side by hand and then go through and sew everything down by machine afterwards, just to make sure that those line up. For now though, I am just sticking a pin through and poking it out in the same place on the other side and saying good enough. I do need a pin right there. That doesn't look like it's going to stay in place. And oop, it looks like I already have a problem because these two lines are not lined up properly together. So I will put everything together first. If you're sewing something super, super skinny, like the tail of a non-fluffy cat or something like that, or a snake, it is fairly difficult to flip it inside out, especially when you're working with the fluffy fabrics. Usually what you do is somewhere in the middle you leave the hole, so that when you're flipping it, you only have to flip it halfway through, like both ends go to the middle and come out, rather than one end has to go all the way to the other. Depending on how thin it is, though, I usually just sew those by hand, because then you can fold the raw edges inside and then just do a quick stitch across it, and you don't have to worry about stitching it and then flipping it at all. Yeah, a lot of times, like, things are possible one way or another, but there's an easier way, some other way, and I always opt for the easiest option, not the proper, correct option on everything. I think what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to leave the hole that I need to leave for flipping it inside out right around that spot where I don't have the right fabric, where that cut is. So I will just leave a little gap right there in between those lines. I won't sew that, so that that's where I can flip everything inside out. Yeah, I mean, doing things the hard way works too. It's mainly me opting for the easy way is so many projects where I opted for the hard way and decided, yeah, I'm not doing that again. So you have to do it the hard way a couple of times to realize you don't want to do it the hard way. Okay, so that is all pinned. I've stabbed myself a couple times pinning it together. Oh, no, I'm going to add two more pins just to the sides of the paw, the toes. But then I will take that over and I'm going to sew all the way around it so that I can flip it, stuff it, and see if those paw pads actually will work the way I'm expecting them to. Enjoy your lurk, Sunbae! Oh, here's another thing you should never do. When you have pins in here, technically the right way to sew would be get right up close to the pin and then pull it out and then continue sewing. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sew over every single one of my pins on the way there. When I get right up to the point of the toes, I'm going to stop with my needle down in, which my machine does for me automatically. And then I'm going to pivot around just so I can get as sharp of a point there as possible. And before I go back to the table, I am going to take a look at everything because it looks like I missed a part of this toe right here along the edge. So I'm flipping it over, just checking, and I'm going to re-stitch that little area right there. Everywhere else is looking good though, so I'm done here, going back to the table. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to flip it just to make sure everything looks right, and then I'm immediately going to put it back inside out because I need to stuff these paw pads first, and I'm going to do that when it is inside out. But before I stuff it, I do want to make sure that the paw itself turned out nicely. Yeah, that is looking pretty good. It looks like my lines on the top and bottom lined up there. I will have to change the angle here and move them a little bit back to line up. That one's looking pretty good. On the other side, the toes line up. That one, or the angle is good, but they don't quite line up. And then the one in the very back didn't line up at all. So I will have to move one of those lines just to readjust them to connect. But those are all small things that are easy enough to fix. So overall, it looks like it turned out perfect. Yay! At least for this test. Now I'm going to flip it so I can stuff the paw pads, and then I will flip it back and fill the entire arm there. Okay, so there we go. I am going to grab my little seam ripper so that I can poke a hole through these guys. I don't want to go all the way through all the fabric. I just want to go through the gray fabric, so this is going to be just kind of slow and careful as I get there. So very first thing I'm doing is just cutting through the stabilizer here, the paper backing. There we go. And then there's the gray. So I'm going to just very carefully cut through just the gray. There we go. And I can see the pink, so I'm not going to cut that. I'm going to go on to the next one and do the exact same thing again. Okay, one last one to go. Okay, there we go. Now this is my mochi stuffing. It is the very soft and silky ones that don't bunch up together. I'm going to put this in the paw pads because they're going to get squished a lot. And Mochi Minky doesn't turn into a felted ball. It still remains soft and squishy the entire time. So that will be good behind the mochi there. And to do the stuffing, I have my little surgeon tools. I forget what the name of these guys are, but they're really good for pinching things and then locking it in place. What keeps the stuffing from coming out, after I stuff it in there, I'm actually going to sew that hole closed so that the stuffing must stay where I put it. Oop. It looks like yep, okay, so my backing just tore away, so I'm actually going to just fully remove it. This will be a test without the paper backing then. And then if this doesn't turn out right, because it's already kind of puffing up along the back, I want all of the puff to go to the front of the paw pad, so that it's completely flat in the back. If this doesn't give me the puff I want, I will try again with the second paw pad with a different paper stabilizer behind it. A different non-cutaway one, or non-tearaway one. Something a little bit more heavy duty. But I am just overstuffing it because I really want that paw pad to puff forward. So the Mochi Minky that I used for the paw pads is extra stretchy. I want it to do all the stretching it is capable of right now. Okay, so that is very well stuffed. I'm going to grab a piece of thread and a needle. And just quickly stitch this closed behind here. It doesn't need to be really well done or the right color or anything like that, because no one's ever going to see this part except for me. And one more time to stuff that right back in there. Okay. And pull a little bit tight. There we go. So that's all closed up. So now the mochi minky that I've put, or the mochi stuffing that I've put in there, can't come back out. It's going to be like locked in there. And then I will stuff the paw itself, the entire arm, with just regular stuffing. There you go. Okay, now I'm going to flip that now because I do want to see how that star turned out. And if it looks decent, I'll flip it and do the rest of the 4 there. Woo. And there we go. That is very squishy. Let me see if I can get a sideways view. So very squishy paw pad there. It kind of stands up from the rest of the fabric. It's no longer just flat. So I'm going to flip this and I'm going to do the other 4 toes there. And, oh no, that one has a hole in it. I did cut all the way through. Oops. Okay, so I will quickly stitch that up so that there's no hole in that one. And then I will do the rest of the stuffing. If this was like the actual paw that I was doing and I cut a hole through it, I would not just be stitching up, I'd be remaking it. But I don't want to do that on the test, so this is just going to get real quick stitch up here. And hopefully it works. If not, I'll just stuff all the other toe pads and it will be a fine demonstration of what it will look like overall. Let's see, get those guys stuffed. There we go. Just tear that off because it's not going to stay in place anyways. Okay. Okay, and then whoop, put my needle back and fill the other toes. Whoop. It's a very, very small toe to be filling with lots of mochi. Ah. So I am going to sew up right around that toe, hopefully keeping everything in place. And I'm going to put a little bit more in there if I can. We'll see if this actually works, if I can get it in there or not. Okay. Just because I want them to be as squishy as possible. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, so that larger one was a little bit easier to stuff. So now I know that if I'm making mochi paw pads like this, there's probably a minimum size that I want to make them. And I don't want to go much smaller than what I've got here. And I will grab another piece of the little bits of string that I leave on my needles, because I don't need a lot to stitch this up. So that was a good use of tiny little bits of string. I knew I saved it for a reason. And do you want some of that mochi just to go back inside? Don't stick out. Go back inside. There we go. So I can tighten that one up and then sew it down. There we go. Now that little bit of thread is too small to use. I will get rid of that. But that is two of them there. I can feel that it's already squishy through there. I just won't flip it until I've gotten all four of them. So two more to go. Grab a quick drink first. Okay. And the more stuffing. And then need another piece of small thread. My final tiny thread. So I will actually have to put thread onto a needle for that last paw print. There we go. Welcome back, Pick. I have filled 3 of the toes. I'm working on the 4th, and then I'm going to flip the whole thing. So that first tiny toe was pretty tough to stuff, so I'm not sure how well this other tiny toe is going to go. They are both the same size. So let's see. It keeps trying to come out. Whoop. Nope, there will be no resin bits on this plushie. What it is going to have is the little mochi paw prints as well as a mochi heart on its chest. And then the visor that its eyes are on will be removable. I'm going to be making 3 different visors and it will be just attached by Velcro onto the face. It will also have a gradient for the hair there, which is probably the most time intensive of the entire thing, just creating that gradient there. So, and then it will have uh a halo that it's wearing as well. Yeah, in terms of plushies that I've made, this one is definitely going to be the most intensive. The reason I took it on was that I wanted to be able to show off all of the different things that I am capable of making, like the gradient, the interchangeable bits, the color blocks, because it's got a whole bunch of different colors on it. Just everything there, the little paws and everything. Um, the tail is going to be multi-layered because it actually has stars coming out of it. I already put together a base for the tail and then tore it all apart so I don't have it to show. But the tail has little stars coming out of the underside out of like slots. So I have to create multiple layers of Minky to have those stars in the inside and then also the slots over top of it. So there are a lot of little intense bits on this plushie, and I'm really looking forward to like being able to show off all the little bits that I've made and things I am capable of making for future plushies on it. Not yet, no. When I finish this paw and the ears, I'll be taking pictures of those, and that will be my update from this week, and I will also let them know that I am going to be working on it on stream for the next little bit as well. So I'm going to let them know that uh tonight and or tomorrow when I send my update. It wasn't really my plan to be doing any of this on stream, so I didn't give them the update already. I thought I was going to take longer on the lambs than I actually did. I didn't mean to finish them yesterday. I was going to finish them like today, probably. So I'm a little bit ahead of where I had planned to be. And this is just, I got excited to do this because the paw pad mochi minky, like on the little guy down there, has the bright green paw pads. I ordered the fabric for those like a month ago and it is finally on its way to me and should be arriving today. So I got really excited by that and I really want to put a lot more work into LAN now uh because that final piece of fabric is finally arriving. Yeah, I was a little too efficient this week. Okay, they are all 4 stuffed and sewn back down. So now I'm going to flip it and stuff the entire arm and see how they all turned out. So there we go. We've got some squishy little beans there. Oops, I got a little hole in that one too. Okay, so notes for the final version, don't cut through the front fabric. But it works. It shows off the little beans there. They are very squishy. I am now going to stuff the entire thing so that we can see what it looks like with the squishy beans and all the 3D shape of the arm there. Not using mochi for this because this is just the standard arm. I'm going to just use my normal polyfill, which is both cheaper and you don't need nearly as much to fill an arm. And because this is a test, I am using my lumpy, squishy stuff that has already been in other test plushies Oh, did I get a follow? I didn't get the ping on my laptop. Oh, well, thanks for the follow. I don't see who you are. Master Pete Diddy. That's a good name. Okay. So there we go. Gonna squash a little bit more into those toes. So this arm is not yet done. The toes that I've made are not very toe-like right now. It's just kind of a blob at the end. That's the, like, I need to still go through with a couple pieces of thread, and right to the points of these, I will be putting a loop of thread around the paw to kind of squish it down and create the actual paw shape rather than the lumpy shape I've got going on here. Oh, behind the plushie, this plushie actually has metal robot wings. So they are just a pair of wings with little green tips on the edges so that you can see them in that image. I do have a picture of the back view. This person who bought the plushie is also a fantastic artist. So they drew basically exactly what they wanted, which was another big reason that I took the project on because usually when people want a plushie, they have me do all the drawing and I have to first design the thing for them, make the modifications, and then actually sew it. This person did all of the art first, and so it was going to be nice and easy. I knew exactly what they wanted from the get go, and that was very nice and convenient for me. Yes, the starry print is going to be fun. That hair is going to take me a while. I will first have to make the gradient on all of the pieces of fabric that need to be used for the hair before I cut it at all, because then that fabric will be going onto my embroidery machine where I put a whole bunch of stars on it, and then only after that can I cut it up and actually turn it into the hair that goes onto the head. Yep, the starry pattern is going to be just embroidery bits. So in the same way that I made all these designs, I'll just make the little stars and put them onto the fabric after it's gradientified. A little bit more stuffing just to get up to the top there. Yes, the ears will have stars on them, but no gradient as of yet. That might still change when I show the picture of the ears. The commissioner might want to put something new on them. I haven't finished the ears or shown them yet, so I don't know the exact details of what the ears are going to have on them. But okay, there, my arm is stuffed. Now I get to go get a giant needle and do the little sculpting of the toes there. But I'll get rid of the rest of my fluff. Don't need that. What I am going to be using now, though, is a giant needle. Don't know if that's visible. Yes. So this is just extra long to make sure that I can go all the way through the plushie and I don't lose the needle on the inside while I'm doing that. There we go. And because I'm sewing this on the outside, I don't want to do my big snarl knot that I usually use on the inside. So I'm just doing a very small knot and I'm going to loop it back through there. So what I mean by that is I come and I do the tiniest, smallest of stitches right here. And then I pull my thread most of the way through to the end. And if I kept pulling, that would just, the whole end of the thread would come through. But if I stop and I put my needle between the two pieces of thread there, I can catch that little guy and essentially make a loop right around the edge there. So right where it starts, I've just made a tiny little loop around the start of the fabric. Then I'm going to come up to the tip of the embroidery design that I made. And I'm going to stick the needle all the way back through to the original side. And then very carefully pull my loop. I really want the loop to sit right in the middle of this this V shape here. If this was just a rounded paw that I was turning into like paw toes there, I would actually loop the fabric, like stick the needle through the edge of the fabric right there just to make sure it doesn't slide around at all. But because this one's got that nice V shape, that thread's not going anywhere once I put it through there. And I'm going to just pull it really tight and go around a second time. But this time, instead of coming out where I began, I'm coming out at the second toe. So right in the middle of the paw now. And then just very carefully pull that nice and tight. There we go. And now I'm going to the top here. And I'm going to come out the bottom here again. And pull that tight. There we go. And then I'm going to do it again so that each of these paws, or each of these little lines I'm making, has 2 layers of thread on it. And then I come out at the third point underneath. And I'm going to pull that tight and go back to the top and come out the third point on the bottom again. And that needs to be pulled tight as well. And then I'm going to go back up to the top again. But this time I'm coming back out the very beginning where I started this whole thing. There we go. And then I'm going to go up and back down through there again. Just this is where I'm going to end that little stitching there. And then back down. Whoops, not through the paw pad, through the edge there. There we go. Give it a nice little squeeze, tug. And then a tiny little stitch again. Not a knot. Not there, not yet. I'm going to tie my knot right there. And another tiny little stitch. And back through that loop. Not there. Nope. Come on. And if it behaves properly, maybe. Come on. Let me see here. Okay, I'm going to make that loop a lot smaller. And then I'm going to go through that tiny little loop to tie my knot. There we go. Okay. Then I can trim that short. So there we go. There is my paw. I now have all 4 of the little toes. I don't actually know how this person found me. Uh, it might have been either on Etsy or on uh, Twitter, because that's where I've had my other custom things similar to this posted. I don't know. Yeah, not really sure how they found me, but they liked it, and I was willing to do this within their budget because uh budget was a bit lower, bit lower than it should be for something like this with the amount of time that all the bits would take. But I really wanted this for my portfolio because I loved the character and all of the designs that they had ready to go. And I was completely willing to do that. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. I am going to make this and it's going to be fantastic. So there's my beans on the arm. Some cute little beans, very squishy. Squishy little guys. There we go. And I'm going to bring the body over. Put my big giant needle away. And then this arm attaches on this side. These arms are going to be jointed so that it's just basically a peg that attaches right here so it will swing around. To kind of mimic that, I'm just putting 2 pins in, and then it doesn't swing at all, but it will be attached at about the same point. Whoop. Pick, I will let you know on Discord. I was gonna try and keep prices off of my stream just because as things change, like if prices get more expensive or if I become super high in demand and I have to turn people down, things like that might change my prices in the future. So I don't want to have today's prices listed so that then people would look at them and be like, well, why is mine much higher? Or why is mine different from that? I was expecting something else from watching the video of a different thing. Yeah, so I will tell you what it is on Discord later on. But there we go. We have an arm attached. Little guy. Squishy paw pads. And then I am going to stuff up the other ear and attach it there. And then I can put the head on. And that will be I think that will be it for today. I might end stream after I get this ear and the head attached, just so that I can then take some pictures and do a little write-up of what I've got here for this person to send them the information. And then I can go stare out the window at the mailbox, waiting for my package to arrive. Okay, so body's gonna sit right there. Head's gonna come over here. Now, when I'm pinning this on, because I want to keep it the right size, I'm not actually going to be pinning along the edge of this. I have to go about a 1/4 inch back, and that's where I'm pinning down. Because if I'm sewing this on for real and not just pinning it in place, I wouldn't be sewing along the edge. I would be sewing a 1/4 inch back. So to keep all my sizes consistent, I do want to make sure that I'm pinning in the right place. Alt is trying to speed run me regretting the mod power thing. Oh, which I can also do. Maybe. Ah, thank you, Judo. Got some nice little beans there. So let me pin this down. There we go. And oh, I ran out of the yellow pins. So usually when I'm attaching things to the heads, I like using the yellow pins because they are a thicker piece of metal so they don't bend. My little blue ones you can bend very, very easy, and this one already has a bend in it, so I will sacrifice it. They are incredibly easy to bend, so I use these when I'm sewing on my sewing machine. They, can you see? Yeah, tiny little guy. These guys I don't mind running over with my sewing machine because if I do hit it, I'm not going to break a needle. I'm going to just bend the pin and then I can toss it away afterwards. There we go. And I didn't grab my yellow pins. I walked over to where I keep my pins and then turned around and came back. And there we go. Oh, nope. I didn't get that quite right. So on the actual finished pattern, I will have lines where these ears are supposed to actually attach. That will actually be like a cut piece of fabric, and there won't be anything underneath the ear until after I stuff the ear and then sew a piece of fabric between. Kind of like the beans have fabric behind them, and I stitched the stuffing inside the beans so it can't come out. I'll do the same thing with the ears where I fill them up and I stitch a piece of fabric around it to keep all of that in place. So it'll be much easier to keep my ears lined up perfectly on the final version. But for now, I'm just kind of eyeballing it and hoping that everything is just about lined up where it's supposed to be. A vague general idea of where things are and what it'll look like afterwards. So I actually do have tags, do with an asterisk have tags for my plushies. I have run out of them, so I am waiting on them to be sent from a person who prints tags over in Hungary. So I'm just waiting on that to mail as well. My life is just waiting on things to arrive. But if you would like to take a look at this little piggy's butt, I do have a little tag. It has my Mr. Moustache on it. It's very, very shiny. Ooh, ooh. We're going to pretend that you can read that. Very shiny. And then I have the care instructions on the back that basically say don't put it in a don't put it in a dishwasher. Definitely don't put it in a dishwasher. Don't put it in a clothing washer either. And to play with it gently because they are handmade. So I do have butt tags for my stuffed animals. Just I've run out of them and I have more on order. Okay, gonna stuff the rest of that ear. And we're gonna see if I get another stab today. I do want to move this line back a little bit, actually. It's a little bit too far into the face section. Still a little bit too far down. I'm gonna pinch that a little bit further up. Okay. And change that line just a little bit. There we go. That looks about even there. And then on the back, they are about lined up. Okay. And then okay. So those are going to be this is my second attempt at the ears. So I'm going to take a picture of all of this, or put it on the stuffed animal, take a picture of all this, and then send it to the commissioner, the evil commissioner, and see if they like the ear shape or if there's anything about the ears that need to change, which then I can make in the next version of the ears there. So pinning, and then I think I will probably end the stream there because I could set up a lamb embroidery for the face, but I don't have anything else to sew right now, so it would just be me embroidering a lamb face while cutting out some fabric for bat wings. And I think probably a better use of my time would be sending this picture on to the commissioner so that they can give me feedback and I can start the next step in this one sooner rather than waiting and anything else there. The bats are just kind of a time filler, and the next lamb isn't due until the end of June. So I've got some time to finish that one before it needs to be mailed out. I also don't really want to cut bat wings today. I'm very excited about making this next step, and I don't want to do boring things. So I will save the lamb embroidery for Monday. I'm not going to stream tomorrow because there is stuff that I need to do that would probably be best without me streaming. I can't really print out address labels and such on stream because that's doxing. So I will do that tomorrow, get everything ready to mail out, and then I will be back on Monday. I don't work on the weekends if I can prevent it. So I will be back on Monday, hopefully with more feedback about this plushie so that I can do some more tests and updates to this one's pattern. Start working on the next guy. And yeah, doing more cool plushie making things, stabbing myself with pins. So I have to see if there's anybody interesting to raid. Let me finish like 2 more pins around the back here. And then another center one. Boop. There we go. So that's Lan with ears, potential ears, not guaranteed ears. Face test, hand test, paw test, and oh, I'm gonna actually stitch this up real quick because I don't like the way this is shaped. So just real quick, stitch up the arm bit just to close it up. So that it'll look proper in the back there when I put it on. There we go. Yeah, that's a better shape there. And now I can pin this arm in place. Balancing act to make sure everything's good there. Yes, I am turning blue again. So very much just anytime you rub off some of the marker there, I start turning that color. And for Lan, I ended up using a lot of blue markers, so I am just varying shades of blue on this project. But that's okay. I already have kind of these lines down where they need to be. Once they are confirmed and they are the right lines, then I come through with a permanent marker and I actually draw them on permanently, and that doesn't fall off on my fingers. But that way I can then wash all the other lines off, shred all of this body apart again, like murder, and then scan them in the same way that I scanned in the ear parts and the arm part with those lines so that I know what to do with the pattern for them next time. So there we go. That is Lan with one paw, 2 ears, everything there. Does not have its tail. I think I unstuffed the tail, so I don't think I have that to put on. Yep, no tail right now. But I do also have my first test of the visor. I need to make it a little bit narrower and longer to fit properly, but that was one of the tests of the visor that I made there. Yes, absolutely shredded apart. I could put abs on a plushie. I've practiced doing that, but I've never made one for an actual commissioner. But basically, you can put abs on a plushie in the same way that I made these paw pads, just on the body itself. And instead of these nice, thick, bold lines, you just do a single line through so that when they puff up, you don't even see those lines there and you just get a shredded plushie. So there we go. I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up all the little bits. I have to label these with what test number they are and any notes for next time so that when I come back to this plushie the next time, I don't have to reinvent everything that I've done. But I'll do that off stream because I have to go dig through my other parent pieces to see what numbers these guys are actually supposed to be. And then I will take some pictures of this, send that on, and I will be back Monday around 10 to 11 Eastern time to stream again. And hopefully I'll get feedback on this guy. I can work on that one. Otherwise, it will probably be more lambs and or little bat wings and narwhals for the store that I sell at in person. So just little boring things. So, okay, let me see if I can find somebody to raid. None of my plushie maker people are on. But Conti actually is. So I think I am going to raid you guys over to Conti, who I have no idea how I ended up in their stream originally. Somebody raided and dropped me off there. But they are one of the people that I usually watch when I am watching streams instead of streaming myself. I don't know what they are playing today, but let's see. Playing Omega Strikers. I don't actually know what that is. But they are playing Omega Strikers, so we're gonna go figure out what that is together, I guess. Yep, the raid call is Moose Raid. So, with the little deer emojis, because there is no moose emoji. Let me see if I can do this raid thing right. If I can't, we're just going to end up somewhere random and it will be real cool. Okay. So there we go. We're going to go see what Conti is doing. Let me... Whoop. So they are a robot bunny, and they play games, and they have a very good voice to listen to when you are making stuffed animals. Okay, so I will see whoever wants to come back on Monday. I will see you on Monday. And if not, at least thank you for stopping by now and have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.